This is the Soul-Filled Sisterhood podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist and an empowerment mentor for women. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute, nor is it to convey professional, psychological, financial, or medical advice. If you could use such services, please seek them out from someone you trust. Now here is today's episode. Episode 19. Today's episode is sponsored by Nicole Burgess, who is an empowerment mentor. She helps the highly sensitive, the introverted, the intuitive, and/or spiritual woman in breaking free from the good girl facade and blaze her own soul-filled trail. Schedule your discovery call today. Go to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com. Hey, ladies! Before I dive into my conversation with my guest, Maureen Werrbach today, where we talk all about the self-care for the introverted entrepreneur, and it does apply to if you work for a company as well, I want to share a little bit about a recent experience that I went through, some of my own self-care that I do. And the reason behind this is I've had colleagues and some of you listeners actually reach out to me and say, hey, Nicole, we'd like to hear a little bit more about your own process, because I can do really good at sharing about my work and the skills that I teach, because I love what I do. But I'm also a very private person. So unless you're in my inner circle, I don't do a lot of sharing about what my own personal process is or some of the retreats and things that I do. So today I thought I would step into that place of vulnerability and share a little bit more with you. So a couple weeks ago, I went to the Omega Institute. I've not been there before for a actual spiritual retreat / workshop. And there was about 80 other women that were there. And it was fascinating because the facility itself, the whole place, I saw so many other introverted people there. And it's nestled back in this lovely kind of country open setting. And they talk a lot about spirituality and mindfulness, and they have all different types of workshops and retreats there. It's just a beautiful place. And the group of women that were there, I cannot say enough how amazing these women were. Any of you sisters out there who are listening, I continue to be very grateful for the experience and the container we all held for one another. It was a very powerful experience. And the person who was leading it, made sure that we were all in agreement to hold the confidentiality and the space for one another. And I think we did. It was something where we were really, well, I'll speak for myself. I was able to get transported into this place of removing any mask or limiting beliefs and things that I held. And that was part of the kind of the work that we were all doing. And a lot of the themes that were going around, right? It's some of the stuff that we've talked about in previous episodes here about making sure you're having good boundaries, taking down the mask, where a lot of the women I work with, right, myself included, can come more from this masculine side, and it's being able to bring in some of the feminine side as well, having more of that balance. And I thought it was done very beautifully. And I don't know how else to describe it. Every woman that was there, whether I got to meet them in person or hear snippets of their lives, just was fascinating, amazing, and they're doing some incredible things out in the world. And that's part of my mission of doing this podcast, is really not only to inspire, but also help or remind some of these things that are already within you to be able to bring them forward. And one of those things today is, especially for the introverted and the highly sensitive ladies listening, making sure you have some downtime. That time for me, which I take every single year, I have a week-long vacation that I will intentionally take, whether it goes to a retreat or I'm out in nature for a week long. That's me rebooting my system. And I can come back so much more refreshed and in the moment. And I practice my mindfulness every single day, which also helps keep the stress level down and the overwhelm down as well. So I want to encourage you, as you're listening to our conversation between Maureen and I today, really begin to think about, if you don't already, how you can make sure you incorporate some of that downtime into your year into your life. And that could be small little moments every single day. That could be taking weekends off here and there. And if you can, take a week off, again, because it helps reset your system. But I can't overemphasize, self-care does not equal selfish. And I know that was one of the themes in the workshop, that is still a huge message out there for many women. It's like, but if I want to go away by myself, or I want to get away from my family for a little bit, or take time off my business, I'm being told it's selfish, or I believe, or I think it's selfish, and it's not. In order for you to fully show up, you have to actually take care and nurture you. And when you're able to do that, the irritation level goes down, you're able to be more present, you're not nearly as stressed out. So I hope you find today's conversation inspiring and also really begin to explore where in your life you can incorporate more of that self-care. Take care, ladies. Well, welcome, sisters. My guest today is Maureen Werrbach, LCPC, who is a therapist and owner of Urban Wellness, a counseling group practice in Chicago. She started Urban Wellness in 2012, which has grown into a team of 20 plus clinicians with multiple locations. Maureen is also the owner of the Group Practice Exchange, a coaching business and platform for current and aspiring group practice owners. The Group Practice Exchange provides guidance for starting a group practice, as well as marketing, organizational structuring, business development, and leadership advice. Maureen also co-owns Group Practice Builders, a company that travels around the U.S. providing in-person group practice building trainings and conferences. Maureen and I actually met a couple years ago at the Psychotherapy Networking Conference. This is where licensed mental health professionals attend to gain their CEUs. And the event is attended has the attendance of over 4,000 people, which, let me tell you, can be overwhelming at times. The reason I am sharing this with you is because as she and I started to talk, she told me, she was an introvert. And as you guys know, that you listened to the previous podcast episodes, that I am as well. And I really wanted to have Maureen on today so she can share how she has created a very successful group practice, now travels around the country to provide trainings, raise a family, maintain her marriage, and manage to take care of herself all along the way. So Maureen, thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be talking about everything that you mentioned. This is going to be fun.
And it's just amazing to me. I mean, I've watched you grow through different Facebook exchanges that you have done, and through the different kind of group that you and I are in, and the networking that we have done, and watch you really create this, I call it an empire, because you have done this so successfully. And when you're talking about, creating multiple locations now for your own group practice, you have 20 plus clinicians. Now you're doing this training in person throughout the year. How do you do this and really truly maintain your sanity? Because as introverts, right, we need to have some downtime. So how do you balance some of these things?
So I feel like this is one piece that's always a work in progress, and it sort of ebbs and flows. There's times where I go on overdrive. I also have ADHD, hyperactive. So I'm like a million ideas, things flowing constantly. I got to do this. I got to get this done. So there's this piece of me that sometimes goes into this overdrive where I'm creating and doing a lot. And because a lot of what I do is solo work, it kind of works to my benefit of being an introvert. I can do a lot of the work on my own. So I get to keep a lot of inside my comfort zone with a lot of what I do. And then there's other times where I realize that I need to slow down. So like I said, it's a work in progress where I realize that I've been on overdrive for a little too long. And then I look at what I have, and I'm lucky with how the type of businesses that I have and the way I've structured them, that I have the ability to pull back, that there is no requirement for me to kind of be on overdrive constantly. And so then I, have to kind of reroute myself and make the intentional decision to slow down a little bit and take care of myself. But I can't say that I'm flawless in this area, because there are times where I get overly excited about new opportunities, and then I all of a sudden am doing 100 things at once.
Well, and I love you just, speaking to that because I think we can all, there's this thing like somehow, as especially women, I think that we need to do everything perfectly balanced. And when you've got, multiple roles that you do in your life, there is no way you can be perfectly balanced. So, yeah, we're going to be pulled sometimes more in one area and then go, okay, wait, I got to pause for this a little bit or back up a little bit so that I can put more energy over here.
Exactly.
How do you, or I guess now, because you say it is a work in progress, do you have kind of specific, I don't know, signals, whether it's getting tired or maybe it's family members or friends or coworkers that start to notice like, hey, you seem like you're really pushing hard or you're doing this and we're concerned about you. How do you really start to navigate if you are kind of in that overdrive mode before you truly burn yourself out?
Yeah, my husband is really good at noticing when I'm doing too much. He's sort of the opposite. He's really good at taking care of himself and relaxing and not putting pressure on himself to be doing and doing and doing, which is something that I do. Is there's so much to be done. There's so much I can, more I can grow. And so I put this pressure on myself to continue to have this forward movement when it's okay to just kind of coast for some time. And so usually he's the one that'll notice it because he'll see that I'm spending a lot of my free time doing work related things, even though it feels good and fun and I get to get that creative side out. He knows that I'm an introvert. And so there are a couple days of the week where I get to spend time by myself upstairs while he watches, his movies and TV shows downstairs or has friends over. And if he notices that I'm using my personal free time, that time that I need to kind of rejuvenate and be alone and kind of have this time to myself, when he notices that I'm spending too much of that time literally doing work-related things, he'll kind of point that out and be like, you're really not using your time that effectively. Like you're just working on top of the fact that you worked all day while I was at work. And so that's usually one indicator. But also a lot of times I can tell as well because I end up getting to a point where I feel stressed out because it stops becoming fun. Either I'm too in it, like trying to be perfect about something that I'm doing, whether it's in my group practice or in one of my other businesses. I get so hyper focused on a specific thing that I'm doing, a new offering and looking for a new clinician or whatever, that I'm just so laser focused that everything else goes away and it becomes less fun, which I find everything that I do, I literally love doing. If I don't, I delegate it to someone else. And so it's really easy for me to start to be able to see when I'm not having fun doing that thing. And then usually 9 times out of 10, it's because I've done it like to death. I've been not doing anything else and just doing it too much. And so then that's my cue to step back and say, anything that I'm doing in my businesses, really, they can all wait. There's nothing, and I think this is true for anyone in any kind of business, there's nothing that is so dire that if you don't do it today or tomorrow, your business will fall apart. And so that's what I kind of think about when I start to get on this overdrive kind of level where I need to take a little bit of a break or regroup myself. But I think in my case, it's sort of interesting being an introvert because I like to be by myself. I'm an only child. I'm used to being by myself. And a lot of the work that I chose is work that I can do by myself. And so it easily becomes a blend of my personal time, but also work time because work is done individually by myself. And so I have to remember that and make sure that I separate the two and not have my own personal time, which I need to rejuvenate, become the time that I also do my work.
Yes. And I love the two different really kind of awareness kind of stoppers, I guess, in a way that you have in place. One being your husband. He is able to state to you like, hey, I'm observing you using that downtime to continue to work versus take care of yourself. And then it sounds like the two of you have this trust level, this foundation where that doesn't become a criticism. It's more truly coming from this place of observation and love. And then secondly, the mindset that you also have, it's like, wow, I get so excited, which is awesome because it taps into that creative side of you and you get going on it. But it's like, wow, if it no longer is fun, then I pause. I need to
Exactly.
take that step back and really look at, it's like, what am I doing? And then do you get to this place, which I'm guessing you do, because this is kind of how you built your empire in a sense, that once you've really kind of worked through maybe the kinks of these new products or new services or hired somebody, you now have kind of staff in place or outsourcing in place, do you not? That really then helps you if you want to keep creating new things so that you're
Yes.
not constantly going, okay, now I've got to do this all over again, correct?
Yes. And that took me a really long time. I always had this idea that I have the best ideas for my business. I know best how to do the things that I want to do in my business. Nobody else will do it as good as I can do it because I love my business more than everyone else. And so I had this mentality that I had to do it all because I'm also, when I come up with an idea, like I said, this is part of my ADHD. I come up with an idea and then I need to do it now. And
Yeah.
nobody else is that, I can't hire anyone to do anything now. They need to do it when they have availability and time. And for me, a lot of my time was thinking I would rather not wait. I like
Mhm.
this idea and it needs to come out tomorrow. So I need to do it. And so there's been a progression in realizing that nothing has to be perfect. It's
Mhm.
a hard lesson to learn, and it's something that I still struggle with. I have a membership site that I've been holding on to and fidgeting with for over a year now. I'm
Mhm.
hoping to seriously let it go in July, but this is again one of my things where I, have this idea of perfection, and in this case, for some weird reason, this darn membership site is the one thing I'm holding on to and constantly tweaking and this and this and this and not
Mhm.
letting it go. But 9 times out of 10, I've gotten to a place where I let it go. I see where the mistakes are. I see where I can make adjustments, and then I do it along the way. But I also have a ton of support people who I can delegate half of these things to. And I started it with my group practice because being an introvert, there are a lot of pieces of my group practice that aren't my strong suit or things that I just don't want to do.
Mhm.
And it tends to be in the realm of marketing, in-person marketing. I'm good with the digital stuff. And with staff management, although I do love leadership and I'm good at that piece, that
Mhm.
day-to-day tasky kind of management, I don't like doing. And so I delegated that to a clinical director. And so there's a lot of things in, all of my businesses where they can kind of run themselves. And I feel like that's the ultimate goal for anyone who owns a business
Mhm.
of any kind, is that they're at least, if they're in the beginning stages of having that business, that they're at least navigating their business in a way that drives it towards being self-sufficient or self-sustaining versus it needing to have you every single day. And it's, I guess, a weird dynamic because in some ways, you don't want your business to be able to run without you because it means, who are you and why do we
Mhm.
need you? But
Mhm.
then there's this other aspect that's like, if it needs you every single day, then the business kind of owns you. You don't own the
Mhm.
business. And so I think this is just part of my progression in learning business management, since I didn't go to business school, is
Mhm.
realizing that it's okay to ask other people to do things, and it's okay if it's not done exactly the way I want or the exact time frame I want. And knowing that just because I think something has to be a certain way doesn't mean that someone who specializes in doing this thing doesn't actually know better. you know,
And
like,
I'm laughing because I get that. Yes.
yeah. So I've kind of let go of a lot of things and said a lot of times I'm saying, looks great, put it out there, instead of trying to butcher it and
Yeah.
say, well, I would like a different picture or I'd like it the font to be different. Now I'm just in a place where 9 times out of 10, I'm like, love it, put it out there for me. And it always works out. And so I think it's a lot of times we're holding ourselves back in that sense.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, as the saying goes, right? Because I think that is so much when you've talked a lot about that perfectionism piece, that part of you that really comes out saying it's got to look exactly this way or no one's going to like it or it's got to be done now. And I know it speaks to me personally because I, will often say that I'm kind of this recovering perfectionist, but there is still that part of me that, boy, when she gets a hold of something, she'll nitpick that stuff over and over. And it's really challenging, that part of saying it's good enough,
Yep.
because it's just like you're saying, it's like this is part of the growth process, both personally and professionally, of being able to ask for support, being able to ask for others who truly do specialize in this specific area, that we don't need to be the master of everything. It's more like, hey, I kind of know what I want, And this person, if they've, gone to school for it or they specialize in it or what it is, it's like, it's okay. They've got more of the skill set in this area than I do. And it's learning to, one, trust yourself, but also with the communication that I'm sure you have with those that help support your business, making sure that it's a good fit. And then being able to communicate that back and forth if there's something that's not working well or needing to be modified or whatever.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm curious then because you've got these multiple businesses going on, how do you kind of plan and I know you got your weekends or different times that you take, to kind of like, okay, I need a couple days off here to do just me type of things. How do you then kind of manage your schedule regarding kind of family vacations and things like that? Do you and your husband do a lot of like, at the end of the year, kind of project forward what that year is going to look like for when you can take time off? Or do you guys kind of do it more spontaneous? How do you manage that personal piece of it?
So I guess a little bit of both. My husband and I get 1 week of vacation time without our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a Chicago public school teacher. So that sort of dictates when we can do it, which is the summer. So it's either July or August that him and I plan a nice vacation out of the country somewhere. And then we do 1 or 2 like family vacations. Mm-hmm. So those tend to be more spontaneous. I really have strived to make my businesses be not a type of business where I have to pre-plan so much that I can't spontaneously. I like spontaneity. Sometimes I just need to get out of my environment, and I don't want to be tied down in a way that my businesses dictate whether or not I can go. And so with my group practice, I like I said, I delegate a lot of it. So I can't, with my group practice, I have just a few clients that I see. I can easily reschedule them or cancel them for a week if I want to at any time and go on a vacation. I have a receptionist. She answers the calls. Calls will be scheduled still. The clinicians will see clients still. My clinical director will manage them. I have a billing person who does the billing. So in that sense, I can really go at any time. And then with group practice builders, we already have set training days. So I obviously don't plan a vacation, right? Like June 15th is our next one in Chicago. I obviously don't have a vacation planned on June 15th. Our next one is in September on the 15th in New York. I won't plan a vacation on that one day. But other than that, that business doesn't take up a ton of time and it's all packed into one day really. And so the marketing and any of the other things that we do for it, I can do from anywhere if I needed to. And then with the group practice exchange, which is what I spend most of my time on, when I have masterminds, which I do until the end of this month, 6-month masterminds, that's the only thing that takes up time that I have to be more intentional about, because we have every 2 weeks and I'm running 3 different masterminds. And so every 2 weeks I meet with them on Zoom, and I have to obviously make sure that I'm somewhere where I have internet access, and that if I'm with my kids or my husband, that they'll like leave so I can do it in peace. But other than that, I've set everything up because I really want to be able to get to a place where I can, not that I want to, but I want to be able to do my business from anywhere. I want to be able to move to Hawaii if I want, or go, I don't know. Not that I would ever do any of those things, but I have this, and I don't know if it's part of me being an only child, and I like to be my own boss. I like to do my own things at it. As a kid, one of my quotes was, "You're not the boss of me." It's so bad, but I would tell my parents this. And so I really don't like when things like businesses tell me what I can and can't do. And so if there was a time where I started to feel locked in, like I'm stuck in a place, I would work really hard at figuring out how I can get unstuck from that. So I'm sort of lucky in that I know my areas that are important to me, and one of them being flexibility and kind of being able to do whatever I want. And I've made sure to have my businesses set up that way so that I can plan a spontaneous vacation away and, tell my clinical director, hey, I'm literally gone, so hold the fort. And with my other businesses that I guess I just make sure I have internet access if I need to be available. I've never been completely offline for very long. So, but with the other businesses, there's much more flexibility in just, checking in on my emails like twice a week at night just to make sure nothing's, bad's going on. But I've set it up that way because I need that flexibility. I need that lack of pressure in that sort of way.
Yeah. And I love this, Maureen, because it sounds to me like that's part of your value system, right? That flexibility, and
Mhm.
you like the creativity and you like the adventure and growth and all that good stuff, but you designed truly your businesses around your life, which I love because not everybody does that. I think there's
Right.
so much of that mindset like, well, I've got to just do it this way and it's the only way I can do it, and then I got to somehow fit my life into what this is. And then
Yep.
you really live life without full purpose or potential because you're so exhausted and overwhelmed all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, you've really engineered it really, really well from how you've created what you have, and so far, and I know you're still creating. So,
Like I said, it's not a perfect science and I haven't perfected it. And there definitely are times when I'm in my creative mode where I go a little too far into doing that kind of work. But
Mhm.
I would just remember when I was a solo clinician and I was working nights. And I think this is common for a lot of therapists. They want to not, be gone every night, whether it's just because they don't feel like working nights or it's because they have a family and they want to be home for their kids. And I remember feeling sort of stuck in having to be there at night because most people work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And what kind of clients am I going to get during the day? And I hear this dialogue a lot from clinicians even now. And I just said I would make it work, and
Mhm.
I started slowly cutting out my latest appointment and
Mhm.
adding 1 hour earlier. And then my next latest appointment, cutting that one out and then adding another earlier appointment. And I worked my way slowly. Weirdly enough, I tend to be this person that when I have an idea, it needs to happen now. But with this, because I knew that there was some level of unsureness of can I get clients during the daytime so I really don't have to work at night.
Mhm.
Um, I kind of did it a little more slowly, but
Mhm.
it worked out. And I feel like it's a concern that a lot of practice owners have is feeling like their private practice schedule dictates, the hours that they can work. And
Right.
that's not true. It just takes a little bit of extra work and the idea that it might grow a little more slowly if you don't work, nights, but it's
Yeah.
definitely possible. And that really freed up. That started it all, I think, is that when I got to a point where I was working, morning to early afternoon, and I
Uh-huh.
was able to be done before 2 and pick my kids up from school, that I was like, I'm going to do this with everything.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I love that again, that it is okay to really start slowly, but it goes back to what's working for me, what's working for my family, what's working in my relationship, and then what is not. And
Right.
beginning to trust yourself. It's like you do have the skills, and yeah, you kind of test the waters a little bit, but it's really challenging the mindset that it's not possible, right?
Right. Exactly.
And as you keep challenging that, you begin to gain that confidence in yourself, and you see it's like, oh, people really can shift their schedules around too, and it really can work. And it's like, yeah, it absolutely can. So again, going back to, does my business fit in my values? Am I living that out, clearly, or is it the other way around and I'm just being driven by that, which is not going to, it's going to lead to burnout, really what it's going to
Exactly.
lead to. So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm really curious. This, I know I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here, but I am very curious. Do you have somebody who has really inspired you over the years to really, just be who you are, but also somebody that I guess that just inspired you, whether it's building all these businesses or whatever. Do you have somebody that inspires you?
I guess I have a few people for various parts of my worldview and work that I do that inspire me. There's a group practice owner in Chicago. She actually just recently sold her business, so she doesn't own the group practice any longer. But
Hmm.
um, it's just a female who owns, I don't know, 10 locations, over 100
Wow.
therapists. Yeah, and I remember when I was still provisionally licensed thinking that that was pretty awesome just as a woman and as
Yeah.
a parent. I knew she was a parent, that she was able to put something like that together and make it work. And I know that, it was a successful business. So in terms of practice building, I really looked up to her and thought, that was sort of amazing what she had put together. And so, not that I want to ever have 9 locations, for sure I don't, or
Right.
10 locations. I don't remember how many. It's a lot. But I just remember thinking, the ability to manage a lot of people and make your vision for your business and the ability to help so many people in the community was pretty awesome. And so that is someone that I looked up to when I was first starting my business and my group practice, at least. And then I have a bunch of random people that I'm inspired by when it comes to online business building, just because that's something with the group practice exchange and group practice builders, although it's in person, all of the marketing and all of the stuff we do is online because we're going to states that we don't even live in and we might not know people in. And I'm inspired by people like Allison Pereira, who I've watched her grow in the past few years. And I think it's really amazing her skills in being able to connect to people virtually. And she sort of has a tribe of people. So so there's a bunch of online, business people who Amy Porterfield. I mean, there's a handful, but I feel like it's people who are kind of doing similar work to what I'm doing that inspire me most, because that's how I grow myself.
Yeah.
And obviously being a coach to people who are starting group practice owners, I feel like everyone needs to have someone that they can see who's done it to help them get there.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's also, when we stay inspired, right, we can also stay in that creative mode too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's all a learning process for sure. So, well, Maureen, I just want to say thank you so much for being on today, sharing your knowledge and your process of how you've grown. And for all the listeners out there, again, I'm going to have all of her links and everything like that in the show notes. But if you want to check out more about the Group Practice Exchange.com is her website. And in Facebook, it's, Facebook, then it's the Group Practice Exchange if you want to connect with Maureen at that level. Is there anything else before we go or say goodbye today that you wanted to share with our listeners?
No, I think you've said it all. You've got me all set up here. So I hope it's was entertaining and that people find what we talked about valuable. And it was really exciting to be able to talk to you again. It's been a while. So no, I'm all set.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing this. And I think even though I know we focus a lot on kind of the group practice regarding, psychotherapist, it really, some of these tips that you talked about can be, as you said, with any business about growing it, building it. But more than anything, it's also making sure you check in with yourself as the woman that you are and knowing that you don't have to do this alone. It's okay to reach out for help and support so that you can continue to grow not only, personally, but also professionally. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Do you want to receive episodes directly to your inbox or stay informed on my latest offerings? Then I invite you to go out to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/podcast, and there is a button for you to sign up for my newsletter. Thank you again.